Long ago, in the lands we now call Southeast Asia, life was not only about planting rice, fishing in the rivers, or trading goods in the markets. Life was also about rituals, about customs, about small acts that carried enormous meaning. For the villagers who lived in bamboo huts or in stilt houses raised above muddy waters, the world was full of spirits. The ancestors were never far away. The forest was alive with unseen forces. The sea, the mountains, the wind. Everything was connected. To live in balance with this world, people created customs that gave order to life and to death. Today, when we hear about these customs, some of them sound very strange. We may shake our heads and wonder, why would they ever do that? But to them, these practices were normal. They were as natural as planting seeds in the soil or lighting a fire at night. Each ritual had its purpose. Each custom was a thread in the fabric of community. When someone was born, when someone married, when someone passed away, the people turned to tradition. Rituals guided them through every stage of life. Even the way they dressed, the way they ate, the way they spoke to one another, was shaped by invisible rules passed down from ancestors. And remember, this was a time when books were rare. Writing itself was often limited to kings, monks, or scribes. For most people, memory lived not in pages, but in actions. Customs carried knowledge across generations. When you followed a ritual, you were not just honoring the past, you were preserving it. The jungles of Vietnam, the plains of Myanmar, the islands of Indonesia. Each place had its own unique traditions, but all shared the same heartbeat, a desire to stay connected to something greater, to the family, to the village, to the spirits, to the cycle of life itself. If you pause for a moment, close your eyes, and imagine yourself sitting by a fire in a small village centuries ago. You would hear elders telling stories of the old ways, their voices slow, their words heavy with meaning. You would feel that these customs were not strange at all, but natural, comforting, part of a living world where the past and the present always touched. And so, when we begin to explore the strange, ancient customs of Southeast Asia, let us not laugh or dismiss them as superstition. Instead, let us listen with patience, with curiosity. Because each custom, no matter how unusual it may sound today, carried a story, a reason, a soul. This is the beginning of our journey, through practices that may shock us, surprise us, and at times even unsettle us. But beneath the strangeness lies wisdom, love, and the timeless human desire to belong. Among the most curious traditions of Southeast Asia were those that involved the teeth. Yes, teeth. What seems to us like just ordinary bones tucked inside our mouths once held deep symbolic power. In some corners of Indonesia and in parts of the Philippines, when a person passed away, their teeth were not simply buried with them. Instead, families sometimes kept them. They turned them into charms, or even wore them as necklaces. Imagine walking through the village with your grandfather's tooth hanging close to your chest, a reminder that he was still protecting you, even in death. To us today, this might feel a little unsettling, maybe even frightening. But in those days, it was an act of love. Death was never seen as a total separation. The boundary between the living and the dead was thin, almost transparent. Carrying a tooth was not about horror. It was about memory, protection, and connection. The tooth became a bridge, a small, tangible piece of a loved one that kept them close. And the customs around teeth didn't stop there. In many communities, people modified their teeth while still alive. Some tribes filed them into sharp points. Others stained them black with natural dyes. Others polished them until they gleamed red. To our modern eyes, it might look painful, unnecessary, even shocking. But for them, this was beauty. This was adulthood. This was status. A mouth full of white, untouched teeth? That wasn't always admired. In fact, in some places it was seen as childish, or even animal-like. To become fully human, to step into society with dignity, one had to alter the teeth. The act itself was a rite of passage. Young boys and girls would sit, sometimes trembling, as the elders carefully filed away at their teeth. There was pain, yes, but there was also pride, because on the other side of that pain came respect. When death arrived, the teeth carried that meaning with them. They were not discarded as useless remains. They were vessels of power. Worn as charms, they guarded the living from evil spirits. Hung on a cord around the neck, they whispered silently of courage, family, and the never-ending chain of generations. We might think, strange custom, strange people. But look closer, and it is not so different from what we do today. Some of us keep a lock of hair from a loved one. Some wear jewelry passed down from grandparents. Some keep ashes in small urns close to home. These are all ways of keeping the dead alive in memory. For the people of Southeast Asia long ago, the tooth was simply their chosen symbol. So the next time you smile and you see your teeth shining in the mirror, remember, for someone centuries ago, those teeth were not just tools to chew food. They were treasures. They were identity. They were the very mark of being human and being remembered. If you travel through Southeast Asia today, you may still see small wooden shrines standing outside homes, shops, or even modern hotels. These are called spirit houses, and they have a long history. The idea is simple, but powerful. People believed that every place, every patch of land, already belonged to spirits. When humans built a house or farmed the land, they were, in a way, intruding. To live peacefully, they had to invite the spirits to stay nearby, in a house of their own. So they built tiny shrines, carefully carved, sometimes painted, sometimes gilded. These weren't just decorations. They were homes for unseen guests. And like any good host, people offered food and drink each day. Rice, fruit, tea, sometimes even a splash of rice wine, a burning stick of incense, a flower garland, a candle flickering in the wind. All of these were little gifts to the spirits, reminders that they were respected, not forgotten. If the offerings were neglected, or if the spirit house was left in disrepair, people feared misfortune. Crops might fail. Illness might spread. Quarrels might break out in the household. So every morning before the day truly began, families laid out their offerings. It was both duty and comfort, a way of saying, "We know you're here. We honor you. Please protect us." For a modern visitor, it may seem strange to treat invisible beings as neighbors. But for the villagers, the spirits were as real as the soil under their feet. They were not ghosts to be feared, but guardians to be respected. The land was never empty. The house was never silent. The air itself was full of presence. In Thailand, in Cambodia, in Laos, even today, these spirit houses still stand. You can see them glowing with candlelight at dusk, or covered with bright marigold garlands in the morning sun. Sometimes you'll notice small figurines placed inside, little statues of horses, elephants, or dancers. Each object is a gift, something the spirits might enjoy to keep them entertained. Centuries ago, these customs were even more central to life. Before planting the first rice seed, before cutting down a tree, before building a hut, the spirits had to be asked. Their permission mattered. Without it, nothing would go well. It may sound unusual, but pause for a moment. Don't we all, in some way, make little rituals to feel safe? Some people knock on wood, some carry lucky charms, some whisper a prayer before a journey. These small actions are echoes of the same human instinct, to reach out to the unseen, to feel less alone in a world full of uncertainty. The spirit houses of Southeast Asia remind us that for the ancients, life was never lived in isolation. Humans walked side by side with spirits, with ancestors, with unseen protectors. To feed the spirits was to feed harmony itself. And while the custom may look strange to outsiders, it held the simple wisdom that respect, gratitude, and care make life more bearable, more balanced. So when you see a small house standing quietly by the roadside, with incense smoke rising like a thin thread into the sky, remember, you are looking at a doorway, a meeting point between the world you see and the world you do not. Across the jungles and rivers of Southeast Asia, the human body itself often became the canvas of tradition. People didn't only wear jewelry or clothing to show identity, they carried it on their skin. Tattoos, scars, marks burned or cut into the flesh. These were not for fashion. They were sacred. They were shields. They were stories written without paper. In places like Myanmar, Thailand, and Cambodia, tattoos carried deep meaning. Warriors believed that sacred patterns inked into their skin could make them invincible. Arrows would break against their flesh. Knives would turn aside. Bullets would fail to wound them. To the believer, the tattoo was armor. Not armor made of metal, but armor of spirit. Monks and shamans often performed the ritual. They used sharpened sticks, dipped in soot or herbal mixtures, and pressed the ink deep into the skin. While working, they chanted prayers, whispered mantras, breathed power into every stroke. The designs were not chosen for beauty. They were chosen for strength. Tigers, serpents, sacred scripts, all symbols of courage and protection. And then there was scarification. In some island communities, scars themselves were badges of honor. Young men and women endured cuts, burns, patterns carved into their arms, chests, or faces. Each scar told a story. Here is the mark of my coming of age. Here is the proof of my courage. To bear the scars was to show that one had faced pain and transformed it into pride. To us today, these customs might look extreme. Who would willingly let a blade or needle carve into their skin? Who would endure such pain? But to them, the pain itself was part of the meaning. Endurance proved worthiness. Every drop of blood spilled during the ritual was an offering, a payment to the spirits for protection. In some villages of Laos and northern Thailand, it was believed that without such marks, a person was vulnerable, not only to weapons, but to invisible forces. Evil spirits, bad luck, illness, all could be held at bay by the right tattoo, the right scar, placed in the right place on the body. And these marks were permanent. They could not be washed away, could not be lost like a necklace or ring. They stayed with you through every journey, through every battle, through every trial of life. They were proof that you belonged, proof that you carried both strength and story on your very skin. When we think of tattoos today, we might think of art, expression, maybe rebellion. But for the ancients of Southeast Asia, tattoos were sacred contracts. They were not only skin deep, they were bonds with the unseen world. A tiger drawn on the chest was not just an image. It was a tiger spirit resting inside the body, ready to leap to life when danger came. So, next time you see an old photo of a warrior covered in intricate patterns, or a farmer with faded marks still glowing faintly on his arms, remember, you are not just looking at decoration, you are looking at armor, at faith, at a map of the invisible. And while to us it may look strange, to them it was life itself. Death is never simple. Across Southeast Asia, people created rituals to guide the soul from this world into the next. And while many cultures buried their dead beneath the earth, here, the elements of water and fire played a central role. To the ancients, the body was not just flesh, it was a vessel, a temporary house for the soul. And when that house was empty, it had to be released with care. In Cambodia, in Thailand, in Myanmar, cremation became the sacred farewell. The body was laid upon a funeral pyre, wood stacked carefully, incense smoke rising into the sky. As flames consumed the body, the soul was believed to rise with it. Fire was a purifier. It dissolved the boundary between this world and the next. Watching the fire was a reminder that everything in life is fleeting, that nothing can be held forever. But fire was not the only element. Water, too, was seen as a pathway. In parts of Indonesia and coastal Vietnam, families placed bodies on small boats or floated them upon rivers, lakes, or the open sea. The current carried the soul away to join ancestors beyond the horizon. The water cradled the dead gently, carrying them to places unseen. Sometimes these rituals were combined. A body might first be burned, then the ashes scattered into a river. The two elements together, fire and water, gave balance. Fire transformed the body. Water delivered the spirit. It was a cycle, a return. Just as rain nourishes the soil, just as flames warm the hearth, so too did these elements guide the dead. There were even grander rituals. In Bali, royal cremations once resembled festivals. Enormous towers, built of bamboo and wood, were carried through the streets. The body of a king or noble was placed inside, and the tower itself set ablaze. It was not a quiet farewell, but a spectacle. Music played, dancers performed, people gathered by the hundreds. The fire roared like a beacon, sending the soul upward in glory. For poorer families, the ritual was simpler, but no less heartfelt. A small fire in a village clearing. A few drops of water poured into the hands of the deceased. A final gift. A prayer whispered as the current carried the ashes away. Rich or poor, king or farmer, the elements embraced them all. To us today, the sight of a body burning in the open air or floating away on the water might feel shocking. But for the ancients, it was not strange at all. It was natural. It was necessary. To keep the soul from wandering, to keep the village safe from restless spirits, the ritual had to be done. And perhaps there is something beautiful in that. Fire reminds us that life is brief. Water reminds us that life is flowing. Together, they teach us to let go, to trust that death is not an ending, but a journey. So when you see the smoke rising from a cremation fire, or the gentle ripples left behind by a boat carrying the dead, you are witnessing more than a farewell. You are seeing the old wisdom of Southeast Asia, a wisdom that found peace in the elements. Life in the old days was never certain. Crops failed, Storms struck, sickness came without warning, and when disaster loomed, people turned to the unseen world. Spirits were everywhere, in the forest, in the rice fields, in the rivers, in the sky. To keep them satisfied, offerings were made. Some were simple: a bowl of rice, a string of flowers, a clay pot of wine. But sometimes the spirits demanded more. They demanded life. Animal sacrifice was one of the strangest and most powerful customs across parts of Southeast Asia. In the highlands of Vietnam, in Laos, in remote corners of Indonesia, buffaloes, chickens, or pigs were offered to the spirits. Their blood spilled onto the earth, feeding the soil, feeding the ancestors, feeding the invisible guardians. To the villagers, this was not cruelty. It was necessity. The spirit world gave life, and sometimes it had to be repaid in life. The buffalo, especially, was sacred, strong, heavy, and patient. It was the farmer's companion in the fields. To sacrifice a buffalo was a great act, a costly gift. At weddings, at harvest festivals, at funerals, the buffalo was offered up. Drums thundered, gongs echoed, villagers sang. The sacrifice was not hidden in shame. It was performed openly, with ritual, with song. The animal spirit was believed to rise, carrying the prayers of the people to the ancestors. In other places, chickens were tied to posts, their feathers painted with red dye, their necks cut at the right moment of the chant. The blood sprinkled across the ground was thought to purify the space, to keep away evil. The body of the chicken, afterwards, was shared as food. Nothing wasted, everything sacred. Even stranger offerings appeared. In parts of Bali, people once laid out meals not only for humans, but also for demons. Small woven baskets filled with rice, sweets, and sometimes even raw meat were placed at crossroads or temple gates. These were gifts to keep the darker spirits content, so they would not cause harm. To ignore them was to invite trouble. To us, the sight of blood dripping into the soil, or food placed for beings no one could see, may seem odd, unsettling, even brutal. But think of it another way. Every culture finds ways to make sense of fear. Some pray quietly in churches. Some light candles. Some whisper charms or wear lucky bracelets. In the old villages of Southeast Asia, sacrifice was their way of bargaining with fate. It was their prayer made visible, and the rituals did more than feed spirits. They bound communities together. When a buffalo was offered, the entire village gathered. People shared the meat, sang songs, told stories. The sacrifice fed not only the invisible world, but also the living. It turned fear into fellowship. It turned danger into celebration. So, while the spilling of blood may sound harsh to us now, to them, it was life's balance. A reminder that humans and spirits lived side by side, and that both had to be cared for. The next time you pass by a village shrine with offerings of fruit, incense, or even a little cup of wine, remember, these are echoes of an older time, when gifts were greater, when life itself was placed on the altar. Strange as it may seem, it was how the people of Southeast Asia spoke to the unseen. Among the most striking customs of Southeast Asia were the rituals where humans and spirits seemed to meet face to face. These were not quiet prayers, not silent offerings. These were loud, full of movement, music, chanting, and trembling bodies. They were ceremonies of possession, where villagers believed that spirits could step into a human form and speak, sing, or dance through them. In Bali, the trance dances are still famous today. Men and women gather, the sound of gamelan music rising into the night, metallic rhythms clashing, drums pounding, voices chanting. Dancers move in circles, their eyes wide, their limbs jerking as if pulled by invisible strings. Some walk barefoot across fire. Some stab themselves with sharp blades, yet show no pain. To the villagers watching, this is not theater. This is the spirit world made visible. The gods and ancestors have arrived. In parts of Myanmar and Thailand, spirit mediums became central figures. During ceremonies, they dressed in bright garments, sometimes wearing crowns or jewelry said to belong to the spirits. With music and offerings, they entered a trance. Their voices changed, their gestures shifted, until people believed they were no longer themselves. A woman might suddenly speak with the voice of a long-dead king, or laugh with the spirit of a mischievous child. Villagers came with questions, and the spirits, through the medium, gave answers. Elsewhere, in the highlands of Vietnam or Laos, shamans beat drums and shook rattles until their bodies shook too. Their eyes rolled back. Their voices rose into chants that no ordinary person could understand. The shaman's soul was said to travel, climbing up to the sky, diving down into rivers, walking among the ancestors. When the drum stopped, the shaman returned, carrying messages or healing power. To modern eyes, these rituals may look like performance, but to the communities who practiced them, they were survival. They were healing. If someone was sick, perhaps a spirit had entered them. If the village faced famine, perhaps the ancestors were angry. The dance, the trance, the possession was a way to communicate, to restore balance, to find answers in a world full of uncertainty. And notice something. These ceremonies were never done alone. They were communal. Music, rhythm, chanting, all built together until the whole village was caught up in the moment. Even those who did not enter trance felt the power. The shared heartbeat of drums connected everyone, living and dead, seen and unseen. Of course, there were dangers. Sometimes possession became too wild. Sometimes a person collapsed, unable to return to themselves. Elders and shamans had to guide the ritual carefully, to open the door for the spirits, and then close it again. Without the closing, the world could fall out of order. But when done right, the ritual left the village stronger. The sick felt lighter. The troubled felt reassured. The community felt united. For a little while, they had danced with the spirits and returned with blessings. To us now, it may seem strange, even frightening, to imagine a body trembling as another voice speaks through it. But deep down, it reflects the same longing we all share, the longing to touch what lies beyond us, the longing to know that we are not alone. And so, the dances, the trances, the possessions of Southeast Asia remind us that for the ancients, the body itself could become a sacred bridge, a doorway, a living altar where human and spirit met. Strange customs, yes, but also profoundly human.